And we are recording.
Okay, this is Marla Smolowitz, Chairman of the Environmental Quality Control Board, and I'd like to call our meeting to order of December 9th, 2020 at 6 p.m. And I think Les Johnson is going to make some introductions and perform a roll call.
So for the roll call, Gary Allen.
Here.
Benjamin Wong.
Present.
Roger Bennett.
Here.
Rich Coles is absent. And Marla Smolowitz.
Here.
Okay. Let's see. Marla, next we have approval of the agenda.
You would like me to read the paragraph. By motion of the Environmental Quality Control Board, this is the time to notify the public of any changes to the agenda, rearrange the order of the agenda, and provide an opportunity for any member of the Environmental Quality Control Board or staff to request an item to be removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Marla, if there are no changes, we just need a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
To approve that, do we have a motion to approve the approval of the agenda?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the agenda. Gary Allen.
I'll second that motion.
Perfect, thank you. Do you want me to read that public communications or via email only?
Just for the approval agenda, just a quick vote by yay, nay for approval of the agenda.
Which we just did. Or you're saying of the agenda via email?
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're good. We're good. We can move on to, to public communications.
Okay. So public communications are via email only. Shall I read both paragraphs?
No, we're fine without having to read that this evening.
Thank you. So shall we go on to have an overview of, we're going to look at tonight the initial SETI mitigated neg deck prepared for conditional use permit as a request to construct a gas station with a 2,400 square foot convenience store within the general commercial zoned area. Do you want me to read the staff recommendation?
No, that is fine. Are you all able to see the PowerPoint?
We do.
Slide?
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you. It's kind of an odd item on my end, what I'm seeing. So I'd just like to, if I could, give you a brief report on this matter. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your introduction to it. Let's see here. The subject property is located at 490 Pacific Coast Highway. You'll see in the lower left corner of the slide here an aerial photo representing that particular location. You have PCH, or Pacific Coast Highway, fronting it on one side, and then 5th Street on another, with a retail commercial strip center on another side, and then it's backing up to the Bridgeport residential community. The site is located within the general commercial zoning district, which does allow for the proposed use within that district. This site was formerly, ironically enough, formerly a gas station, an Arco gas station. And there's a photo I was able to find of that station prior to its demolition, which occurred in 2011. I would like to point out that this site did have, historically had an issue with the former gasoline fuel tanks. There has been an active environmental remediation on that site since 1986. The main soil remediation work has essentially been completed, and now it's a matter of monitoring the requirement to continue to monitor that site with regards to any of the contamination and ensuring that it's been all properly taken care of and removed. The proposal represents constructing a new gas fueling station and convenience store on the subject property. The site plan, the proposed site plan is represented here on the slide. And you can see that, again, Pacific Coast Highway is up to the upper one side there to the right, and then to the below south end of it is 5th Street. There's a large canopy with 16 gas pumps proposed. That's highlighted in the yellow area on the slide. And then a 2,400 square foot convenience store proposed towards to the left of the slide here in that corner. There are 16 parking spaces proposed, most of those being located directly in the front of the convenience store. And then the new underground fuel tanks, not pumps, will be located within the, I guess, the southern or southeastern portion of the site near 5th Street. With regards to the initial study and the review that was done, there were a number of mitigation measures identified, and I would like to go through those and summarize those for you. Within the cultural resources section, there is a possibility of locating a Native American artifacts. I know that the site has obviously been previously disturbed. However, with the proposed digging and work that would occur, there is still a possibility that there could be artifacts found. And so as a result, the mitigation measure proposed calls for an archaeologist to be involved in overseeing all of the activity, all of the digging that's occurring on the site. And in addition, that Native American monitors from the Garbelino and Juanino tribes are also present during those grading times as well. With regards to geology and soils, there is a mitigation measure representing a geotechnical investigation being prepared and submitted to the city with final site design or prior to final site design approval by the city, and that any of the recommendations from that investigation report be incorporated into that final project design. With regards to hazards and hazardous materials, there is the requirement for construction worker health and safety work plan to be established for the project, that all excavation be monitored by a registered environmental assessor, and then finally that a hazardous materials business emergency plan be created and that plan be submitted to Orange County Environmental Health for their consideration. And then finally, under the transportation section, there is a mitigation measure calling out for the restriping of Pacific Coast Highway at 5th Street. That leg of the intersection be restriped for the eastbound approach, be designed in such a way to where there would be a dedicated left, a through and left shared lane, and a right turn lane defined. And then in addition, that there would be the requirement to split phase that signal. We are about almost smack dab in the middle of the 30-day public review period for this item. That began back on November 23rd and is scheduled to conclude on December 23rd. And all of the document material, the actual initial study, mitigated neg deck, and all of the supporting documentation is available for viewing on the city's website. The decision or the recommendation of the Environmental Quality Control Board will be forwarded on to the Planning Commission. And at this time, the project is tentatively scheduled for Planning Commission consideration during their February 1st meeting. I would also like to point out that as of this evening, we have not received any public comments prior to tonight's meeting for your consideration. So with that, staff is recommending that the Environmental Quality Control Board accept and forward the initial study mitigated negative declaration to the Planning Commission for the construction of the proposed gas station and convenience store at 490 Pacific Coast Highway. And that concludes my brief introduction to this item. I'll definitely be happy to answer any questions. I'd also like to, Madam Chair, just quickly introduce to you, there's a number of people on the call this evening from the team that put this document together, and I'm sure they can answer any questions you have. We have Mr. Ahmad Gaderi from A&S Engineering. We have Paula Sim and Kelly Brown from Speedway, David Crook from Helix, Tim Chan from Kimley Horn, and Mahir Weber from Weber Consultants. So with that, that'll conclude my report, and I'm here and able to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Les. What I'd like to do is go in alphabetical order for staff concerns. And I think that starts us with Gary Allen. Do you have questions about the document from the consultants or the consultants?
Well, Madam Chair, I have some comments that I'd like to read into the record tonight.
Please.
Okay. This board is tasked with judging whether the mitigated negative declaration for this proposed new gas station is a reasonable and reliable determination of the environmental impact of the project when compared to generally used environmental criteria. A reading of the document does seem to indicate that it is when considered in conjunction with the proposed mitigation measures and monitoring program. However, I have some reservations about opinion stemming from the size of the project and the inevitable factor of the law of unintended consequences, and particularly in the context of the project's local setting proximate to residential land uses. I have read in the literature that a large, quote, large gas station is considered to be one pumping about 300,000 gallons of gas monthly. This project is proposing a 16 station facility pumping 500,000 gallons monthly, which is a 66% more than what is generally considered a quote large operation. So why does it have to be of such magnitude when there are other gas stations within a short distance, and especially when the proposed site is so proximate to existing residential houses? Nearest house is only a scant 50 feet away. And the residents of those nearby houses have already a history of complaints and issues with the old and the continuing impacts from the previous gas station on the site. Regardless of the considerable thought put into the commendable mitigation measures and monitoring program here, the unavoidable fact is that there are going to be accidental spills, accidental emissions, and perhaps, it happens, even explosions. That's where the law of unintended consequences arises. The literature on environmental impacts associated with gas stations includes a number of studies and examples around the US and the world where, despite regulation and design consideration, accidents have happened. Toxic emissions have occurred, endangering nearby residents. For example, a study by Kitsius showed that the risk of cancer to people in the vicinity of gas station is on the order of 3 to 21% higher than the general population. The study by Hilbert of Johns Hopkins University recommended setbacks of 500 feet from gas stations. And as I mentioned, the nearest residence only 50 feet away. Another study, which was published in Scientific American, which was based upon EPA data, stated that ground level ozone causes significant environmental problems for those residents near a gas station, especially children. It seems to me that unintended possibilities, unintended consequences may be too much of a risk when residences are so close. To the credit of the authors of this mitigated negative declaration, it does provide a substantial amount of analyses of the predictable emissions and the impacts arising from construction and operation of the project based upon applying various computer models developed by California Air Resources Board, the South Coast Air Quality Management District, and other agencies. As a note to that, I think I would like to see the qualifications of the modelers be provided. And continue on, the results of these analyses compared to federal, state, regional, or amortized standards are generally acceptable, or they are at least with the proposed mitigation measures in the monitoring program. However, those are likely considered false comparisons by the nearby residents who experienced the impacts personally rather than through some area-wide standard. Even though they may be mathematically low levels, if it happens to be of the carcinogenic benzene or other TACs, that may well be of significant concern to the residents. As a little analogy here, my background over the last 30 some years was in aircraft noise, airport noise. And we always evaluated the potential noise from various projects and actions that were being considered to be compared to federal and state standards, the day-night noise level standards or the community noise equivalent level standards, which California has. But I never, ever attended a public hearing where the local residents didn't come up and say, well, okay, we understand that those are standards, but that's not what we hear. We don't hear the CNEL. What we hear are the actual noise events as they're occurring. And I think the residents of the local residents here would probably feel much the same. Anyway, returning to first statements, I do think the board can consider the negative declaration as reasonable when comparing the project impacts to the generally accepted standards used in environmental impact documents under CEQA. However, I'm not convinced that those are the right standards, as I was alluding to with my noise discussion there, to apply to a project of this scale in these particular environments with the residential land uses so close. And in any case, I am reluctant to support the project, at least at its proposed size. If we're to be scaled down to fewer pumps, maybe less gasoline throughput, and with lesser risk of unintended consequences, perhaps it would be more acceptable to the local neighbors. Madam Chair, that's the extent of the comments which I would like to read into the record at this time.
Hey, thank you, Gary. Maybe we should take a minute. I don't know if Les, two things. One, maybe Gary, if you want to have some directed questions for the consultants who are here, who could maybe answer to give you comfort level on the certain issues like 50 feet from the house, if this is something that is part of the code. But maybe Les could address what our purpose is as the EQCB and what are our parameters that we're supposed to evaluate as far as the project and its environmental impact. Les, maybe you want to say a few words on that?
Certainly, I mean, from the EQCB standpoint and per the, the municipal code establishment of this board and its powers and duties, it really is a focus of maintenance of a high quality, clean environment for the city. That's really what it says right within the municipal code is multiple times is that's really your focus is to investigate potential threats of that and to make recommendations, be it to city council or planning commission that really focuses in again on that. So, the focus is really within the extent of the documentation before you. If you feel that it is fully addressing all of those environmental concerns, and if it is not fully addressing those properly, either requesting more or incorporate that into your recommendation that you would forward on in this instance to the Planning Commission. But as I understand it, Madam Chair, that's the responsibilities of the EQCB.
Thank you, Les. Based on that, Gary, do you have a pointed question specifically concerning environmental concerns for the consultants to give you the answers that you need for the project?
Yes, well, I wouldn't argue that the mitigated negative declaration does look into the impacts of this project and compares it to accepted environmental criteria. The problem that I have is that, relating back to my own experience in environmental matters, that local residents don't really understand the concept of area-wide standards and such. They only feel, what is impacting them specifically. So that was the basis upon which I made. One question I'd like to ask of the project applicant is, why are they proposing a project of 16 pumps and a throughput of about 500,000 gallons of gasoline a month? Why does it have to be of that magnitude?
Madam Chair, this is Ahmad Gadiri with ANS Engineering. Would you mind if I answer that question?
I was hoping you would.
Thank you so much. I just didn't want to interrupt you or anybody else. Mr. Allen, just one clarification. The number of pumps proposed are 8 pumps. The number of 16 that Mr. Johnson is mentioning is fueling positions. We only have pumps being proposed for this project. There are not 16 pumps. The volume that you're looking at, as far as the volume that's been analyzed for, that was a number that we utilized just to have a maximum amount of volume. That doesn't necessarily mean that's how much we anticipate to be selling fuel, that amount of gallonage, but that was just basically trying to be conservative and use a high number so that we can be conservative in the amounts of emission being, calculated by Helix, our environmental consultant. That necessarily does not mean that we're going to be pumping 500,000 gallons from the facility. Hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Looking at the kind of a worst case scenario is a good practice.
Yes, sir.
And I'm glad to hear that the project really is only proposing 8 pumps as opposed to the 16 that,
yes, sir.
That is mentioned in the document.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That makes
and this is Dave
that makes me feel a lot more
from Helix. I was going to just add something that to the extent that your point is well taken on the area-wide or air basin-wide impacts, and that's typically how we look at the construction and operational emissions based on those thresholds. However, when we look at toxic air contaminants and those things like carbon monoxide, we do zoom in on kind of the local area because that's the kind of the geography in which those would have an effect. So things like, as far as operationally, the exposure of those fumes from gasoline, just minor amounts, even with the vapor control systems, we evaluated all that, and assuming that higher volume too. So as Ahmad mentioned, our toxic air contaminants and looking at the long-term operational aspects of it really focused in on that local area right surrounding the gas station itself. So that's some context for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does that answer your questions, Gary?
Well, I think so. I guess one last question, which I really didn't allude to in my comments that I read into the record, that was related to noise. There is an existing 6-foot fence there between the project and the local residents there, the one's on Galleon Way and the one that's just 50 feet away. Was there analyses done to show if that was going to be adequate, or did I miss something in the report?
Well, this is Dave Crook. I'm not looking at the specific noise report, but I do know that I think the existing wall was going to just remain unless there was some other changes I didn't see. But the fact is, operationally, because Coast Highway is so loud, and as you know, having a noise background, the increase is what we're talking about. So the provision of the gas station and the operations that would result to it in the background context, looking at the amount of traffic on Coast Highway, wasn't a significant increase. So we didn't provide operational mitigation measures, but I would note that as Les was going through some of the mitigation measures, another addition that we made in a different version, which will be obviously included in the final document, is a noise mitigation measure related to construction as well. Just for your information, there's an additional measure that staff asked for that would just require some barriers during construction to protect those homes there from noise during construction.
Thank you.
If I could just identify that, since it was brought up by Mr. Cook, the mitigation measure calls for a 10-foot tall temporary noise control barrier being provided within 100 feet of the tank excavation activity. So again, it would not be for a long-term noise mitigation, but would address the noise mitigation during construction of the tanks.
Correct. Thank you.
And you did a sound barrier analysis to confirm that would be adequate?
Yeah, we do use the modeling software, and if you wanted to see that, I think it's in the appendix, but if not, I can get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if that answers the questions for Gary, I would like to go alphabetically to Roger Bennett for any questions he might have, concerns and comments for the consultants.
No, not at this point.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Ben Wong is next. Ben, are you there?
Oh yeah, I just had it on mute. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm actually curious now about that previous ARCO that was at the site was mentioned being demoed in 2011. Is there any knowledge of why it came back? Was it environmental or was it just a lack of distance?
I had
Madam Chair, I couldn't hear the question.
neither could I. This is Marla talking. I'm sorry, Ben. It seemed to be a little muffled. Could you maybe repeat the question for the consultants? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Is that better?
Much
Yeah.
better for me.
Oh, okay, I closed my laptop. That's why when I figured we weren't on camera anymore. But sorry, everyone. My question was the ARCO site that was previously there in 2011 that was demoed. Do we know why that site had closed down? Was it lack of business or was there any environmental issues?
Mr. Wong, my apologies, I don't have that answer for you. We can research that and get back to you, but I don't know, Paula, my apologies, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but would you know by any chance why
The site was demolished when they pulled those tanks. So there was a release from the tanks and the tanks were pulled and the site was demolished.
Mm-hmm. Do we know how long that ARCO station had operated at that site prior to being closed?
No, it was a gas station for many, many years. And I don't know how long it was with ARCO.
I guess I'm trying to compare a little bit to apples. I'm trying to get a gauge of how does this compare, the old station compare to this proposed new station as far as size wise? How many pumps did this old station have?
Mr. Wong, I can just, based on the documents that I have seen, as far as the number of pumps, the previous facility had 4 pumps, and the size of the building was approximately the same. It was actually, the previous building was approximately 1,950 square feet, and the building over here is 2,400. Yeah, it's very close. But our documents, we can triple check and get back to you guys, but the number of pumps from documents that I have were 4.
Okay. And is there, I guess, I guess you guys have done your market studies. Is there a big need for a new gas station at that site? Because I know about half mile down, there's that Chevron at 1300 California 1, just about half. And then on the opposite side, I think more towards the Long Beach side, there's another, I believe, the Mobile station. So this is going to be smack in between two other gas stations within a 1 mile distance of each other.
Mr. Wong, again, analysis has been done by Speedway's marketing, and they believe that this site would serve the needs of the neighbors and the community. Hence the reason we have the project before you for your approval. They go through the scenarios for economic feasibility and success of the site. So this site is a good candidate for this proposed improvement.
And for the new site, what are the proposed hours of operation? Is it going to be a 24-hour gas station?
Yes, sir.
Or, oh, it will be 24 hours.
Yes, sir. It'll be 24 hours.
And are the current gas stations that I mentioned, the one on further down on Chevron and Mobile, are those 24 hours as well, or are those at limited hours?
My understanding is I'm pretty confident that the Chevron is 24/7. I'm familiar with the other location, but we can definitely look that up and get that information for you as well.
I'm just curious how this would compare and how this might affect the area if those stations from the opposite ends of this proposed one, if they close at, like, let's say 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and this one becomes a 24-hour, it definitely will affect it could affect, I should say, the surrounding area, or as far as the neighborhood goes. There is one for comparison. There's a Chevron station, I believe, on the College Park East side of Seal Beach. That's over at 4000 Lampson. And then that, I know, I believe there was concern about being so close to residential, but I think that might be a great comparison, as well as, again, that Chevron on 1300 California Highway 1, right? And then for this new proposed site, is there any comparison to that one on 4000 Lampson?
My apologies. I'm not familiar with that site as far as the comparison wise, but I can look into it and get back to you. But I need to take a look at it and see what and get back to Mr. Johnson to answer your questions if that helps.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I also noticed in the Helix file, I think the start dates are, I think we've already gone past the start dates, right, for the construction. And so when are the new proposed start dates, if everything were to go smoothly?
Well, the start date, David, I'm going to let you speak as well, but the start dates that were estimated is, of course, based upon getting the approval, going through the proper approval process.
Correct. And mind you that this document was prepared early this year, and it's kind of been going around the process, and so some of the information's changed. But to one point, I just want to make as far as our analyses, the years of construction activity are generally related more to the both traffic and air quality, and to the extent that air quality. The way the models work is that over time, cars and other things are assumed to get more efficient. So the sooner the timeline is, the more conservative that analysis is. So if we're pushing back a year or more, what have you, it'll just result in the emissions being estimated as lower. So just wanted to make that point. But we can update those dates to reflect the current condition in the final document.
Okay. And then the construction of this pump, I should say, this gas station would be for, I guess, an estimates for how long?
The time frame to build such facilities could range, of course, as you know, with the inspections and what have you, but it could range between 5 to 7 months.
I see. Okay, I think those are my remaining questions. But I'm very curious about how it compares to the other neighboring current gas stations. Later on, if we could circle back on that later on. Yes.
I'm sure I may be able to address that if I could. In just looking at it very quickly here, a comparison, the Chevron station in College Park East has the ability to, I'm not sure if I call them pumps or how we want to do this, but there's 4 pumps with the ability to serve up to 8 vehicles at one time. That Chevron station has a auto service component to it. I think the footprint of the building is probably comparable in size, probably around 2,000 square feet. But it has a much smaller convenience store because of the footprint of the service station. That takes up about 2/3 of the building, it looks like. It does provide 24-hour gas service, but the vehicle service part, I think, is more of the standard hours, like 7:30 to 5 or something to that effect. And also the Chevron station on PCH is a 24-hour station.
So it's a 24-hour pump, but the convenience store portion is, do we know if that's 24 hours as well?
The Chevron station on PCH, if I'm thinking the same one that, let's see, where is that out? Is it just past 12th?
Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah.
I thought it just had a pay booth, or
Mhm.
I don't know if it has much of a, I don't think there is a convenience store component to it, if I remember correctly.
No.
I'm looking really quick here. Yeah, there is no convenience, just a pay booth. They've actually inquired about wanting to expand to do that, but there is no convenience store component with that Chevron station there at 13th and PCH.
Hey, Les, I have a question. Is this for the hours of operation for, I guess, for the convenience store factor, is that consistent with the rest of the stores in Seal Beach? Do we have 24-hour stores?
We do have 24-hour convenience stores at various locations, yes. As to the exact location of all of them, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm fairly certain that the convenience store at the Chevron station at Westminster and Seal Beach Boulevard, which is probably more comparable to what's proposed here, I'm fairly certain that's a 24-hour operation.
I see.
Example.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ben. This Marla Smallwoods. I have some questions on the cleanup and the hazardous materials. I'll give my question because I don't know which consultant would be the one to deal with it. So I couldn't find anywhere in the document where it shows to what level has the existing soil been cleaned to.
If you don't mind, Paula, would you mind if I defer that to you? Or
This is Dave Cook. I'll defer to the hazardous materials consultant if they're on.
This is Kelly Brown with Stantec. The majority of the site was excavated down to depths between 11 and 17 feet back in 2011, 2012. So the majority of that soil has been removed from the site. And we've been pumping groundwater since 2011 or so, and treating that along with soil vapor through a soil vapor extraction system.
So
Does
Kelly,
that answer your question?
well,
I'm sorry, this is Paula. I was on mute.
Okay, Paula, go ahead.
So I'm sorry, could you one more time with the question?
Yeah, I wanted to know, I have quite a few questions about the soil. I wanted to know the existing soil on the site, to what level it has been cleaned up. And Kelly said that the majority of the soil has been removed. You're continuing to monitor it. But I guess the big question for me is, there's going to be a pad put on the soil. So there's obviously still hazardous soil there because it all wasn't removed. You've been monitoring it. So I'd like to know, what is the hazardous material left in the soil, and can that leach to the groundwater? Because if it's encapsulated, then it creates a different issue. And number 2 question on top of that is, you have one company who's remediating the soil, which is not this company coming in. Is that correct? Paula, is that correct? Can you hear me? So one company is cleaning the soil.
That actually goes down a takes a slight turn here on
Okay.
topic. So Speedway is managing the remediation project
I'm sorry, who is
on Marathon. Speedway
Speedway?
is the company
Okay.
that I work for.
Uh-huh.
We are managing the remediation case on Marathon's behalf at the moment.
Uh-huh.
This case will be returning to Marathon to manage in the next month or two. So, so for the remediation, it will be
I'm sorry, you broke up. The remediation will be what?
it will be managed by Marathon as of February 2021.
Okay, but the
So we'll
new,
be handing.
but Marathon is not the company coming in that's going to oversee the new product, or are they? Let me give you my concern. You're going to have new product on the property pumping oil. If one of those tanks leaks, which it could, even if it's double walled, you have a monitoring system. How are you going to identify the new leak from an old leak? Are you going to have a tracer on the fuel?
Okay, that's a really good question, actually. So okay. It opens up sort of a can of worms. So first of all, and Ahmed could talk to the continuous monitoring for leaks.
Yes.
But the identification of new leaks would be by sensors within the fueling system. So let's put a pin in that for a moment, and Ahmed can talk to that in a minute. But as far as your question about the soil at the site is, I believe that's going to be almost 100% fill material that you're removing, right? The site has been excavated. So everything that's on there right now is gravel. It's fill material.
If it were clean, they wouldn't continue monitoring it. So there still has to be something left in the existing soil, or am I incorrect?
No, we're monitoring mostly off-site right now. So we have a couple of focus areas. One is along the very edge of the site near PCH, and the other is at the adjacent parcel at PCH Plaza. So those are the two areas where we're focusing sort of the tail end of the remediation. And we continue to monitor the groundwater in the area just to confirm that everything is clean and that we don't see what we call rebound. We're watching the concentrations.
And for what period will that go till, Paula? The monitoring.
Probably the end of 2021.
But that means it's not 100% clean. And that's my concern as a citizen of Seal Beach. I worked for the Port of LA, which had all kinds of issues with fingers pointing at each other. We didn't leak the tank, somebody else leaked the tank. So that's why I want to know if there's a tracer on the new stuff coming in, because if it gets encapsulated, the soil's contaminated, are we going to know it came from the new owners or from the previous owners? Because there's a big cost to clean it up.
So the concentrations at the moment are below California low threat closure standards in groundwater. And Kelly can speak to this in more detail, but
below which standards?
The California low threat closure policy standards.
Okay.
So we're monitoring, but that doesn't mean that it means we're monitoring to ensure that it stays that way. Kelly, do you have a different way of saying that might make more sense?
Sure. So to give you an idea, so the majority of the site, other than the two locations that Paula had mentioned, very eastern portion of the site along PCH and over by the PCH Plaza, groundwater is non-detect. So that means there's no contaminants detected in groundwater wells that we are monitoring. In that, as Paula had said, we're conducting rebound monitoring to ensure it stays that way. The two areas that we are focusing on have low concentrations. We're working with Orange County Healthcare Agency to ensure the protection of the public, and we clean those up to levels that are acceptable to the state of California.
And when will those be cleaned up to the acceptable state, author to the end of 2021 or later?
No, they're pretty much there already, but we're doing extra work to ensure the safety of the community. We're working with Orange County, and Orange County is very conservative on this. And so with these two locations, we expect hopefully by I would say the middle of the year, towards the end of the year, we should be done with the remediation portion of that, and the monitoring will continue. They have requirements, that is Orange County, that we have a period of monitoring after we shut the systems off to ensure that there's not a rebound, meaning the concentrations don't come back up, as Paula had mentioned.
Okay, and are there going to be any kind of tracers or markers in the product so that they're never confused with what was there before, or that will not be the case?
I can't attest to that, but I can say that based on the concentrations being non-detect, meaning that there's nothing in groundwater, if there is a release, we'll know that it'll be from the current tank system.
Fair enough. All right, let me see if there was any other, on a separate issue, and I thank you very much, both of you, for the explanation.
You're welcome.
I thank you. I didn't understand, if somebody can explain, I just didn't follow it. It said on table 11 that there's going to be a future roadway build out, and I don't know if that was on PCH. Is there anyone there that knows about the build out of the road? I couldn't really follow where we're building it out and why. Is that because of the trucks coming in on 5th Street, or is that for something different?
I don't, Madam Chair, this is Ahmad Guderi with ANS Engineering. I'm not aware of any build out by the subject site. While you're referring to table 11, maybe perhaps on the traffic study, or is that on another document? Because if it's traffic study, Tim can probably address that. But we don't anticipate any improvements other than the restriping on 5th Avenue and modifications to the signal.
So maybe less than, do you know, is that something that the city's doing, this future road build out? It says it's table 11, which I think is on page 55 of the document. I made a note, but then I went back and I couldn't find it. And I was wondering, well, we'll get back to the fueling post in minutes. Les, are you familiar with the build out?
Madam Chair, I'm not. I mean, I'm a bit perplexed as well. I'm looking at table 11 right now.
Okay.
I don't see any reference to that. The environment there from the standpoint of roadway build out, meaning, curb to curb width of the street is a built environment. I'm not aware of any plans to widen any of the road infrastructure in that area. And again, the only thing I'm aware of, again, is the restriping that's identified as a mitigation measure. But the curb to curb width of both PCH and 5th is set, and I'm not aware of any modifications proposed for either of those spots.
Yeah, maybe it was maybe I misread something then. I think that is it for my questions. And I saw the trucks, one more thing, and I think the weight is not an issue. I saw it said the trucks are all going to come in off of 5th Street, and those aren't trucks that require an overweight corridor, are they?
They don't, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I didn't think they did. I just wanted to check. That concludes my questions. Do we have any motions on the floor, or do the consultants want to make any more comments about the project that they think might not have been explained?
Madam Chair, just as a continuation to a comment that Paula made just a few minutes ago, I don't know if you're interested in getting some additional information on the proposed underground tanks. As you know, as you also mentioned, these are the most restrictive in California as far as double wall tanks, tracer wire on the piping, and is continuous monitoring 24/7. And any possible issues with the tanks are immediately, addressed, and also the monitoring shuts the facility down. So I don't know if you wanted some additional information on underground tanks, or would that be sufficient
That,
for your interest?
no, I know they're extremely well monitored now. My concern was if you have a new product coming in, we're not going to know it from the old product. And then you have a problem with each company saying, I'm not responsible to clean it up. And then it could become the cost would be borne by the city of Seal Beach. And that's, as a member of City Seal Beach, that would be my concern. I'm protecting the city's coffers, but you're saying it's pretty much completely cleaned up and that shouldn't be an issue. And yes, anything new leaking out should show up by the monitor to the double wall tank.
Correct.
No, that's fine. I don't need any additional information, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any of the members have any more questions, or would anybody like to make a proposal to accept the proposal as recommended by staff, or accept it with recommendations, with specifications, concerns, or move forward? Is there a motion?
I'll motion.
What is the motion, Ben?
I apologize. I'll make a motion to accept the plans as proposed.
I second it. And I would like to make one, if we could note with our acceptance and to send our approval on to the Planning Commission, I would like it noted that the consultants did represent that there would be 8 pumps on the proposed site and not 16 as we read in the neg deck. I would like that pointed out, please. Do I have a motion on that? I made the motion. Do I have a second?
Yes, I second that.
Thank you.
Gary Allen.
All in favor of both of the motions on the floor?
Roger, aye.
Aye.
Gary Allen, aye.
Motion so moved. Both of them. Les, is that sufficient for you?
Madam Chair, yes. What I have is a unanimous recommendation of the Planning Commission to accept as proposed with the notation as represented by the consultant that there are 8 pumps, not 16 represented for the project.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, my apologies for interruption. I just want to clarify one item. It's 8 pumps, but it's 16 cars can fuel. I just want to make sure, because 16 pumps in our line means 32 cars can fuel. I just want to make sure that's clarified. 8 pumps and 16 cars can fuel. I just want to make sure that's clarified.
I'm confused.
No, if you're familiar with a gas pump, there's one on each side of the pump.
Oh,
Correct.
thank you very
Yeah.
much. Perfect.
Yeah, I just want to clarify.
If we could just get clarification also as the hours of operations for that convenience store. I just want to make sure it's consistent with the area. I guess my greater concerns is if it's a 24-hour convenience store, especially of that size, about 2,400 square feet, it could draw a lot of people to loiter as well, especially at odd hours, and especially we do have a growing homeless population. So I don't know if we want to make a note on that, at least going forward, for the Planning Commission to at least consider the hours of operation for that convenience store.
My only question would be to Les, because it's not under our purview because it's environmental.
Yeah.
Is that appropriate? Can we make that suggestion, or does it need to come from planning? It's a good suggestion. I'm just not sure it's something that we have a purview over.
Madam Chair, we will provide a summary of the comments from this meeting to the commission along with the recommendation. And so we will make note of one of those comments was questioning, the hours of operation. But I mean, it's fine for us to note that it was not a part of your recommendation. But again, we typically provide a brief summary of the comments, and so we'll make sure that the commission's aware of that point of discussion from tonight's meeting.
Great.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the comment, Ben. Do we have any board concerns before we adjourn? And any staff concerns?
No concerns, Madam Chair, but this will be the last meeting for this year. I know we don't meet that often, but we've had two in 2 months. I just want to say very quickly to all of you, first of all, thank you for your patience, understanding, in meeting this unique meeting format. And also wanted to wish from all of us here at the city, our staff, to all of you, a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year. And hope to have an opportunity to meet sometime after the first of the year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank all of the consultants for taking the time to explain everything else to us tonight and being here.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
The
Thank you.
adjourned Environmental Quality Control Board meeting of Wednesday, December 23rd at 6:57 p.m. Thank you all very much. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.